under Rule 36, I intend to participate and vote on this matter as an ex officio member. Thank you.
So recognize Alderman Lopez, we have you counted towards quorum. Thank you. At this time, we will begin the public comment period. The public comment period will be limited to 30 minutes. Out of respect for everyone's time, each speaker today is limited to 2 minutes because we've had a number of people sign up. We will have 15 people that will be able to speak this morning.
Can also non-members could be recognized?
Yes, non-members. Thank you, Alderman. Non-members who are here are Alderman Yancey, Alderman Gutierrez, Alderman Coleman, Alderman Cruz, Alderman Napolitano, Alderman Fuentes. I said her name. Any other non-member here that has not been recognized? Okay. The first speaker is Michael Young Bay, followed by Carl Gutierrez.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I didn't get an agenda, but I still can talk on the finance. As I was taught when I was young, it takes finance to uplift a nation. You know, we need finance to continue to move this city. We need finance for allegedly candidates that's running for office. We need finance for the children, for education. We need finance for different programs, for the uplifting of people here in the city of Chicago and in the country. Finance is very important. You know, we going through a budget crisis here, and pretty much I believe that most of y'all know that this was going to be a problem. When we were saying don't give $72 million for certain migrant issues, taking money from TIF and COVID funds, et cetera, you know, how could you possibly think that you was going to be balanced out come the end of the year when it's time for a new budget? That's impossible, you know. I do know mathematics. I done got a copy of all 3 budgets for the last 3 years that I've been down here, telling y'all to stop putting money in this, stop putting money in that, but not putting money in the citizens. You know, now the citizens have a high tax bill. You know, that's outrageous. Some people $3,000, you know, extra in taxes, but it's not no jobs out here. We giving raises and finance to certain companies and raises to certain people in office, you know, but there's no money for the children. There's no money for the seniors. There's no money for the homeless. There's no money for the schools. There's no money for transportation. There's no money for everything but what you want money to be for. And it's hurting the citizens here in the city of Chicago. We need finance, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Bay. The next speaker, Carl Gutierrez, followed by Jackie Sample.
Still morning. Good morning. My name is Carl Gutierrez from the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, representing more than 1,000 members of all sizes and sectors across our city. The 2026 budget has been a hugely difficult process, putting our city in a place that we've never been. Make no mistake, both budgets are hard on all of Chicago's businesses, but especially our small and mid-sized companies. Chicago businesses across the board not only have more skin in the game, but by a margin of 4-1, starting with the hundreds of millions of dollars in the lease tax, but continuing with the doubling of costs of business licenses, along with the myriad of other new revenues in both budgets. And that's on top of the new taxes from last year. I will say it again, both budgets are very difficult. However, while both are hugely difficult, the alternative at least doesn't include a tax on jobs, does more to address the savings and efficiencies identified by the Ernst & Young report, and makes the full advance payment on our city's pensions, lowering the threat of a credit downgrade and helping better protect our city's financial future. Members of this committee, you should not have been put in this position, but you stepped up and in the face of an aggressive and unwarranted attacks on yourselves and your character, you proceeded with the unprecedented task of having to create an alternative. I will say it for a third time. Both budgets are hugely difficult for Chicago businesses. Both budgets have businesses putting more skin in the game by a margin of 4-1, but these budgets represent choices. While one looks to the future, difficult as it is, the other chooses to build its house on sand. We are a good city and a great city, and we must choose better than that. We have a lot more work ahead of us, but we look forward to working with all of you next year and the years to come to build on our city's future in a just and sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Mosley, I wanted to recognize you. Make sure you're on remotely.
Present, Chair.
Okay, great. Jackie Sample, followed by Lynetta Thomas.
Hello, my name is Jackie Sample. I'm here to bring awareness about my divorce case with 4 DuPage County judges who engaged in a coordinated pattern of misconduct. They knowingly accepted fraudulent financial documents submitted by my husband, Dr. Madison Sample, while ignoring truthful financial records submitted by me. These judges refused to enforce their own court orders while assisting my spouse in stealing millions of dollars and moving business assets to hide them from me. This conduct followed a clear pattern of crooked judges, corruption, financial fraud, bribery. They knowingly assisted my spouse in stealing over $5 million in assets and leaving me penniless. This misconduct did not stop there. The actions of these judges reflect a slave owner mentality. I endured extreme systemic racial discrimination, contempt, dehumanization, rooted in racism. My property was taken and everything I built over the last 25 years was illegally stripped from me. I was treated less than human, as a commodity rather than a full person with rights. In May of 2025, Judge Neil Cerny unlawfully dismissed my divorce case against my wishes, forcing me to remain legally married to an abusive spouse and leaving me financially devastated. Judge Neil Cerny, Kenton Scarton, James Arrell, and Susan Alvarado treated me not as a person, but as property. Their practice include fear-based control used to dominate and silence me, so I would not speak out about their collusion in the theft of my assets and property, stripping me of everything I built and any legal ability to protect it. In addition, the judiciary willfully and knowingly violated my rights under the Americans with Disability Act. Reasonable accommodations were obstructed, and my ability to fairly and equally participate in court proceedings were denied. As a result, I now have multiple foreclosure cases pending in Cook County. I have filed a federal complaint against DuPage County judges and my spouse, yet my ADA rights and due process rights under color.
Thank you, Ms. Sample. The next speaker is Lynetta Thomas, followed by Ray Roundtree.
All right, y'all got one of these sergeant at arms threatening me back over here. I'm just letting you know right now. Members of the Finance Committee, I'm asking today that the following be taken as formal working notes and that staff be directed to supply, verify, and publish the supporting numbers before the budget moves any further. Chicago is facing a $1.15 billion corporate fund shortfall. If this committee is serious about closing that gap responsibly, we need to focus on quantifiable levers, not symbolic revenue. First, a $33 head tax. Based on existing estimates, it raises approximately $8 million or less than 7% of the deficit, while creating negative hiring incentives. I'm asking finance staff to place the official revenue projection, economic impact assumptions, and administrative costs into the record so members can evaluate whether this tool meaningfully addresses the gap. Second, overtime spending, particularly at CPD. Recent budgets show CPD overtime budgeted near $100 million, but spent closer to $190 million. With the fiscal year proposal increasing the line item $200 million. I'm requesting the 5-year overtime trend by department, identification of avoidable overtime drivers, and a fiscal estimate for 10, 15, and 25% reductions through enforceable caps, pre-approval, and event cost recovery. Peer cities routinely realize 100 to 150 million in annual savings through these controls. Third, wages and personal costs. A 1-year pause on across-the-board raises, excluding step increases in critical frontline roles, should be costed out by staff. Based on comparable cities, this represents 120 to 180 million in avoided cost growth. This pause should explicitly include elected officials whose salaries average 142,000 with COLAs totaling over 350,000 annually across the council. Fourth, contracts and procurement. Chicago spends billions annually on outside vendors. I'm requesting a fiscal note estimating savings for rebidding and consolidating the top contract categories using conservative benchmarks to
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Our next speaker is Ray Roundtree, followed by Alex Goldenberg.
Yeah, this just to bring awareness. Bill Conway, 34th Ward Alderman. I'm trying to see why is nothing being done about the kidnapping of Dylan J. Roundtree, my son. It happened in your ward. What's the problem? Can't get no help. I've been here for years in your ward. There's nothing's being done. That's it. That's all.
Excuse me, Mr. Roundtree. Thank you very much. The next speaker is Alex Goldenberg, followed by Reverend Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley.
Good afternoon again. Earlier, I made the point that there is no evidence that the corporate head tax is a job killer. And I really think it's important for the members of this committee to acknowledge that, to internalize that. There is analysis by economics and labor experts that have concluded that. Centrist Joe Ferguson has concluded that. And it's really hard for us to understand why you're still making that a talking point and hinging your argument for your proposal on a fact that is blatantly false. The other point that I think it's really important to make is that this search for revenue from fines, from selling debt of low income and suffering people, people are getting into the situation of debt because they have no means to pay it. These are people who are getting tickets, booted, accumulating different debt to the city. And your plan is to actually make life harder for them instead of to ask the ultra wealthy that have it so good to just pay a little bit more. I can't think of a starker contrast than people who have to learn all the different places that all the different pounds of the city. They know all the mazes. They have been to those trailers. They have been to under Wacker, those dark places. They have had to decide whether they were going to be able to put food on the table or get their car to then go to work. And those are the people who are looking to make more sacrifice instead of the ultra rich who have never had it better. So I really think that putting forward an unbalanced budget that is so regressive is wrong, and we strongly encourage you to take the right decision, tax the rich corporations who have it, and support the protection.
Thank you, Mr. Goldenberg. Reverend Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley, followed by Apostle Sandy A. Norman.
Yes, good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
First off, again, good morning, Chairman. I love you more. If I stand in that one. I want to say, Madam Chairman, is it possible that I can get a copy of the revenue ordinance alternative?
Yeah, we have, you can check that on, it's on the clerk's website, it's online.
Okay, thank you. I'm in full support of the Protecting Chicago budget with the aldermen, be it pro or con, can come together and help make it a righteous budget for everybody in Chicago. If you see something that's wrong and you can make it better, I believe everybody need to understand to make it better. The reason that I asked for a copy of the alternative is because I haven't seen where new revenue was gonna be generated when I see new revenue being generated from the Protecting Chicago budget. The people in the community can't judge what they can't see. And that's what they trying to see, so they can say, hey, well, that makes sense. Case in point, the people realize the importance of the garbage tax because it was shown $9 or $15.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Wallace Gator Bradley. That's a good one. Apostle Sandy Norman,
Blessings,
followed
everyone.
by James McCoy.
Blessings, everyone. My name is Apostle Sandy A. Norman. I want to say honor to everyone that is here. I did come to the meeting and I will be at all the council meetings moving forward. I want to say that I'm a product of the West Side Lawndale community, Ida B. Wells housing projects. And as a pastor, I have one of the best violence intervention ministries and outreach teams in the city of Chicago. And so I want to just say to the city of Chicago, when they, the flip red, when they're talking about audits, I'm in the streets, I'm active. I work with the police department, turning in weapons. I'm in a lot of the aldermanic wards that are here doing the work. And so people like myself, I just want to say to the city of Chicago that what I've been experiencing from the city is that the funding is not going to the people that are actually doing the work, but the funding is going to a lot of these organizations that are not on the street. They're not preventing crime, but they have political ties and political connections, and that is wrong, and it is not of God. And so I'm here again because Chain Breakers VIP Ministries, we know the detail that the mayor takes. We're in all of our communities from Lawndale. We're in East Garfield. We're in Michelle Harris's aldermanic wards. And again, the funding, the corruption, it's terrible. And you have, I can't even count on my hand, 10 pastors that are in the city of Chicago that are actively on the street doing anything in our communities, but yet they continue. I see the funding that is being distributed. I have been disrespected. I am one of the most honorable women of God in the city of Chicago, and I can back up what I do. I have over 20,000. We're camping out on the streets 24 hours doing the real work, but we
Thank you, Apostle Norman. The next speaker is James McCoy, followed by Amy Masters.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. The days that people don't pay attention to politics are over with. The days that people don't pay attention to the voting record of certain people, of certain aldermen, is over with. All right. I need everybody to understand that people's seats are not nearly as solid and unmovable as you think they are. So when we talk about we're coming to get your seats, when we talk about you might get replaced, that's a very real possibility. We can look at some of your records. Y'all did not win your elections by that much. We don't need that much. If you think that your budget will be able to beat our influence, it won't. Okay. Even your fake and stage interviews, it didn't get Kamala Harris in office. It's not going to keep Brandon Johnson his money. Okay. This stuff is not going to work. And what we're telling you now is that Brandon Johnson has proven he's not a man of his word. He swore up and down he wasn't going to increase housing taxes. And then the next year he decided to do that. Now he's acting as if he completely didn't do that whatsoever. You know for a fact that he agreed with it. Implicit. And we need to save yourselves a little bit. to be very honest with you, because your voting record is kind of set in stone right now. All right. We know for a fact that there are so many things that can be cut. If you want to save the budget, if you want to balance the budget somewhat, you would cut what needs to be cut. All right. Brandon Johnson's talking about which is his big thing because he understands that people don't like, super big rich people, but he doesn't talk about he's giving a lot of you all raises. He doesn't talk about the fact that he's giving himself a huge $5 million. Keeping track of all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. The next speaker is Amy Masters, followed by Adrian Setti.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Dowell and members of the Finance Committee. My name is Amy Masters, and I'm here today on behalf of the Building Owners and Managers Association of Chicago, or BOMA Chicago. We represent about 240 large office buildings in the city, and our buildings house about 18,000 tenants and over 500,000 office workers. Chicago's office industry supports jobs, most of which are today to ask you to support the alternative budget put forward by members of the City Council. We are grateful for the many years this group has committed without the benefit of a budget staff, craft a reasonable, balanced package that avoids a head tax and the mayor's dramatic property tax increase of $300 million proposed last year. This revenue package supports a full advance pension payment. Paying the full amount will prevent the city from falling further behind, protects our credit rating, and avoids the higher costs that come with borrowing or shorting the system. This updated budget proposal also removes the garbage fee increase. It eliminates cuts to the Chicago Public Library system and increases funding for domestic violence services. These are meaningful improvements that protect residents while strengthening the city's longstanding financial position. There's been a repeated claim that businesses aren't paying their fair share. But in this package, more than 80% of the fee and tax increases fall on businesses, not residents. Some of these include a 15% personal property lease tax, a new social media tax, and increased business fees. This on top of commercial property already paying the highest property taxes in the country. No one likes tax and fee increases, but we need a balance that limits additional burdens on residents while supporting economic growth. The city can't risk a government shutdown that would harm residents and businesses.
Thank you, Ms. Masters. The next speaker is Adrian Setti, followed by George Blakemore.
Good morning. My name's Adrian. I'm a library worker at Chicago Public Library at the Harold Washington Library downtown. I'm here to tell you that, contrary to our last speaker, restoring our collections budget is not sufficient to do justice to our libraries. I'm represented by AFSCME, but I'm here to talk about the cutting of 200 of our SEIU library security guards as proposed in the mayor's budget. We've been hearing that this budget has no library layoffs, and I am grateful that my job is not on the chopping block this year. But the reduction of funds for library security staffing by 44% is not just a number, it's the guards we rely on every day to create peaceful spaces for our patrons. Library staff meet people with a huge range of needs, and sometimes we encounter those who are struggling so much that they may hurt themselves or others. At Harold Washington Library, where I work, in the last year, we've experienced a group knife fight, sexual assault of a minor, battery of staff, a patron stalking library pages, and more. Our guards make a difference. Security guards in our libraries help us de-escalate dangerous situations, keep libraries safe for vulnerable patrons, and ensure that everyone can enjoy public services in peace. We rely on guards who are trained in conflict prevention and management to help us help all of our patrons without involving the police. The police district my library is in doesn't have a CARES team, so when we call for outside assistance, the responders who arrive are not clinicians trained to handle mental health crises. It's cops ready to make arrests. Having guards present means that much more of the time we can avoid calling the police and subjecting people to being cycled through the criminal justice system. The reduction in force of 200 library security workers for 2026 would be a serious blow to library services. I have trouble understanding how the termination of these workers has garnered so little attention. Maybe if we don't consider contract labor real work, then we can say there are no layoffs. I don't think it'll be much consolation to our guards to know that they weren't laid off. Raising the library levy would mean the owners of the most expensive properties in our city would pay their fair share so that we don't see job losses and vacant.
Thank you, Ms. Setti. The next speaker is George Blakemore, followed by Jessica Jackson.
Taxation without representation, voodoo economics. This, look here, this is Pat Dial over finance, a culture of corruption. Alderman Burt was indicted. Alderman Burt was indicted, and they're still stealing. It's just a culture of corruption here. Voodoo economics here. It's terrible. It's terrible. Just one corrupt person be indicted and another corrupt one comes in. Nothing changes. It all remains the same because the people allow this to happen. Walter Burnett is gone. Now he's nepotism, corruption, fraud, abuse. Just musical chair. They go from one hog pen to the other. Where's the other hog pen? Over here, Cook County. That's where the Tony Prewinkle came. What hog pen did she come from? This one. They just transfer the pigs from one hog pen to the other one. Some of them are even big and fat like pigs. Lord. Now look here now. The most budget. They say one of the worst of all the wards. This is this man's ward. And his wife's ward. And a black ward. But you go to Madison, Pulaski, who do you see out there? Koreans and European and Asian. What are the blacks doing? Buying. They're not selling nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore. Next speaker is Jessica Jackson, followed by Dennis White. And our last speaker is Danielle Carter.
Before I say what I need to say, I want to thank Alderman Talaferro for helping me with my case. He did, in fact, come through and help me, and I want to acknowledge that. Thank you very much. Now, with that being said, that John Hendricks was here. Now, he ran in the back because he didn't want to hear this conversation. Now, you got your finance people over there that's with him from the city. You got that, what is it, Annette Gooseman, who is in here instead of him. And you got the lady with the black jacket on with the glasses, who I really thought was AI up until right now, because she just had this stoic position on TV. She doesn't even move, you know, so I thought she was AI. So seeing that how she's real, maybe you can go back there and tell John Hendricks that Jessica Jackson said that meeting that he had with Senator Terry Bryant from Springfield in March 2025, when him and Mary Richardson Laurie lied and told Senator Terry Bryant that the reason why my case had not been settled was because my mother did not have a will. It's the same lie that Cook County public administrators told. So do not sit here and make like the city and the county and the city are not connected, because they're very connected. So the fact that you all will sit here and look at some false, rigged up numbers that you can't even fix is a disgrace. You all are a disgrace because you're lying. Stop lying. You won't say nothing about the money that was spent on illegal immigrants, because you know that's what's got this budget messed up. It has nothing to do with no ultra rich or nothing else. It's got to do with the incompetence of you and that Gooseman that sit there and let Brandon Johnson do this garbage. You and that AI robot neck.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Our next speaker is Dennis White, and our last speaker is Danielle Carter.
It's amazing that people over here saying tax the rich. It's more easier what liberals say, tax the rich, but they don't have jobs. It's easy for an incompetent, make-believe American black mayor, which he might be an undercover Haitian, to say, we need to tax the rich, but at the same time, he like to raise property taxes and stuff to say, well, we need to put our skin in the game. And then he's saying, he crying with the dry tears, talking about, my family didn't have no food in the refrigerator. Maybe they didn't have a job. I don't know. But nevertheless, Brandon Johnson either need to be voted out, impeached, indicted, convicted, jail for the rest of his life. That's what Brandon Johnson need to be. And I'm telling you now, if you vote 25-10 to say no to Brandon Johnson, make it 26 to 9 to say no to Brandon Johnson, because this budget do not need to be passed. And then all these liberals over here are talking about we need to tax the rich and stuff. Get a job, man. That's all you need to do. Now, here's the thing. The blacks from the South Side and the West Side are getting tired of all these unnecessary taxes from the Democratic politicians right here. And then and here's the lesson. The Democrat symbol is of a jackass, but look how many dumbasses that's under the jackasses and stuff. So I'm saying to this, the election season is coming. Them seats are going to get hot. It's going to be in danger, and you're going to get voted out. And Brandon Johnson, you're going to prison.
Thank you, Mr. White. Danielle Carter.
So I'm not going to raise property taxes. That's been the lazy form of governance for a very long time in the city of Chicago and quite frankly, around the country. Communities have been hit hard because the property taxes continue to go up. And that's why I'm committed to making sure that we're not raising property taxes to keep families in the city of Chicago. So ensure that we're keeping everybody here. The greatest population loss right now in the city of Chicago are Black people. Why? Because we have not addressed public safety and property taxes. We just saw.
You live in the city of Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson wants to increase your property taxes.
Mayor's $300 million property tax proposal.
For Chicago property owners, a double dose of pain. First came reassessments. Now, a possible property tax hike. Rather than proposed layoffs or furloughs, today Mayor Brandon Johnson sent City Council a budget calling for a $300 million property tax increase, the largest in 9 years. According to the administration, the average homeowner would pay 4% more. By tapping into the property tax well, the mayor is breaking a campaign promise.
Feel that you are taxing them into financial slavery to pay for migrants. The exact amount of this tax increase that you're proposing is, I think, to the penny, what you've already given to one of the migrant vendors. The migrant vendor named Favorite Healthcare Staffing, not to mention all the other migrant vendors. Wouldn't it make more sense for your tax increase to simply be called a migrant tax on Chicagoans?
Make no mistake about it. We warned you all. They're trying to divert. The reason why your property taxes went up, because we paying.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. This concludes the public comment period. I want to acknowledge that the Committee on Finance has received, the Committee on Finance has received 18 public comments pertaining to the matters before us today, and they were all sent to you electronically. We have a total of 5 items on this agenda this morning, or this afternoon now. Item number 1. Excuse me. I'm asking the gallery to please be silent for this meeting. Thank you. The committee has been informed, on item number 1, the committee has been informed by the mayor's office that item number 1 will not be discussed during today's committee meeting. So we will go out of the regular order of the agenda and hear item number 5. Item number 5 is an ordinance introduced by Alderman Matthew O'Shea and others, amending titles 1, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 14A, 14B, 14X, and 15 of the Municipal Code 2026 Municipal Code Revenue Ordinance Alternative. There is a substitute ordinance which has been prepared and sent out electronically to everyone and distributed to everyone in this room today. Pages 3 and 4 have been revised and will be explained by Alderman Nugent. Is there a motion to accept the substitute ordinance?
So moved.
So moved by Alderman Beal. Alderman Nugent, would you please explain pages 3 and 4?
Madam Chair, I was just moving to accept the substitute ordinance that was circulated and have received the updated pages 3 and 4 to reflect the changes. I was just simply stating that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lee and Alderman Wagasback are here to explain the ordinance that you have before you today, substitute ordinance. Point of order, Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Do we need to vote to accept the substitute?
You are correct. Hold on one second. All those in favor of accepting the substitute, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the substitute ordinance is now before the committee and will be explained by my colleagues, Alderman Lee and Alderman Wagasback. But before you start, Alderman Moore, you had a point of information?
It's tripping, but I just want to be clear, Chairman, the one that says substitute page 1 through 81 is the one we're talking about, or is it the other one that says ordinance pages? Ooh,
It should have substitute ordinance at the top.
okay, not the one that ends with Exhibit A. Okay,
Substitute revenue ordinance.
okay, thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Lee and Alderman Wagasback, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Colleagues, thank you for being here today. As a lot of you know, our Aldermanic Coalition worked throughout the weekend to fine-tune revenue and spending options in consultation with budget and finance advisors, not-for-profits, many other entities throughout the city, as well as industries, including manufacturing, liquor, and the business community. As part of this collaborative process among many alders, we've come to an agreement to remove the garbage tax as part of our proposal. We have no grocery tax, we have no property tax, and we have no head tax. We have worked to also include the mayor's record-setting TIF surplus, despite the distorted rhetoric that has been spreading around the city. We have also figured out how to balance this proposal while fully funding collections in the Chicago Public Library and provide additional funding for gender-based violence. We believe that this final proposal represents the position of an even broader number of alders than just a few days ago, and are excited to move forward in this process to avoid a possible shutdown and give the residents, working families, and businesses the peace of mind they deserve as we close out 2025. We also want to share for the record the confidence we have in our revenue projections. Our advisors are among some of the city's best budget and finance experts who dug deep into the numbers with those of us who do this work every day. As we all know, every spending and revenue number in a budget is an estimate, and that applies to our numbers as it does with those assumed in the mayor's proposal. Our budget is balanced. The one that we provide to today is balanced, and we are ready to move forward with our spending and revenue projections. We look forward to passing this out today and avoiding the shutdown that I think many in this city fear, and this proposal today will help us get through this time of crisis and a time of need. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Before we go, I would like to acknowledge Alderman Rodriguez, who has joined us for quorum, and Alderman Lawson and Alderman Manal Hoppenworth, who are non-members who've joined us today. Alderman Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you to my colleague Alderman Wagasback. I'd like to just add to the remarks. Budgets are hard. We all know that. I've only voted on a few of them. Many of you here have voted on more. And with anything, we have, for hundreds of hours at this point, engaged the majority of City Council in conversations, having debates about what goes in the budget, agreeing, disagreeing, agreeing to disagree. Because make no mistake, there's not a budget that's on the table right now that everybody likes every aspect of. But our job is to make sure that the city government continues to run, and we do this in a responsible way, and we believe that we have that we're meeting our obligations, and that we're leaving Chicago stronger for it. So with that, we'll get started with the presentation. All of the alders should have hard copies of this in front of you, and we've got this projecting on the screen here. Okay. We used the mayor's original proposal as a base budget. We're really only talking about $258,400,000 of a $16.6 billion budget. On the expenditure side, we're increasing on the corporate fund, the removal of the head tax at $100 million, ensuring that we make the full advance pension payment at $139,900,000, increasing funding for gender-based violence programs above the 2025 levels, restoring funding for the library books, library collections at $5 million, and restoring funding for youth mentoring that we know is very effective. Again, this represents a very small portion of the budget, 1.6% of a $16.6 billion budget. So how do we get there? We're going to walk through this summary very quickly, and then we're going to go through individually, so you'll get more descriptive details about each one of these as we go along. On the expenditure decrease side of the House, we're looking at the UI efficiencies report that was done by Ernst & Young. We're anticipating that there will be $46.6 million in savings and efficiencies. On revenue adjustments for the ground transportation tax, this has to do with Uber and Lyft and the congestion fee zones. We're looking, this adjustment is based on an adjustment from the prior version. The original version of the revenue ordinance had a fee increase. So we worked backwards from there, and this looks weird because it says minus 39 million. We're going to go through that in detail. We're also adding on here business tax for video gaming at $6.8 million. Personal property lease tax at an increase to 15%, which is capped through the end of 2027. Increasing the shopping bag tax from 10 cents to 15 cents while maintaining the 1 cent rebate to retailers for reimbursement. That's $8.7 million. On the liquor tax, we would replace the existing unit-based tax with a percentage-based tax for off-premise liquor sales. That we believe can conservatively generate $6 million in the next fiscal year. Nonprofit boat mooring exemption. There's a yacht tax that was proposed. We propose exempting nonprofits to the tune of $200,000 to this budget. Fines, fees, forfeitures, and penalties. We're projecting a $92.6 million revenue from that resource, and we'll get into details of that in a little bit. Rentals and leases, looking at augmented reality advertising. I know this is new. We're going to tell you all about it when we get into it. That's $6 million. Advertising revenue and getting creative with our advertising revenue for bridge houses as a pilot, light poles as a pilot, and then city vehicles. We anticipate $29.3 million in additional revenue for that. And finally, taking prior year assigned and unassigned available resources at $20 million for a total of $258,400,000. Alderman Ragaspeck will get into the corporate savings.
Okay, in the corporate fund savings, we set a target for expense reductions in the corporate fund, but provide flexibility on how we get there. And this target is based on efficiencies that we identified in the Ernst & Young report, including closing select vacant positions, improving fleet disposition, life cycle modeling, and warranty recovery, service optimization through implementing cost recovery fees like false burglar alarm fees. And the target there was $46 million. Under this, for instance, the vacant positions in the EY short-term estimate, they provided a range of $2 million to $10 million. We used the low estimate of $2 million. In terms of optimizing managerial spans of control, the EY midterm or 1 to 3 year report estimated that $37 million could be 26 or 7.4 million. Spending. EY midterm estimate was $5 to $11 million. We assumed 50% implementation for FY26 or 2.5 million. And the reason I will state is that we tried to make our numbers conservative so that people did not think we were overblowing what the EY report recommended and what the administration thought they could get to. In fleet services on the work stream, in the EY report, this is page 15. The other point I would make out on some of these is that this is very prescriptive, so the administration, if they want to put more effort into it, could actually find more savings in the EY report. And that was made very clear after several weeks of waiting for the EY report to come out when EY came before us and there was testimony in this council chambers. And the fleet services work stream, accelerated disposition. EY short-term estimate was 4.4 to 6.4. We used the lowest estimate, $1.4 million. Improve life. The estimate was 2.2 to 4.4. We used 2.2. Expand the warranty recovery. The EY short-term estimate was 1.7 to 3.7 million, and we used the low estimate again of 1.7 million. Now moving on to service optimization. The recommended items from EY, except disbanding the CPD mounted unit, was adjusting fire alarm inspection fees, false alarm burglar fees, adding a false fire alarm fee, increasing film production squad car fees, increasing pyrotechnics and sprinkler fees, and implementing a treat no transport fee, adding a non-emergent lift assist fee, reducing 311 hours from 24/7 by leveraging chatbots, and additional items. EY short-term estimate for all of these options was $18 million. We only assumed 50% of that implementation, or $9 million. Now moving on to the next page for ground transportation congestion fee. Essentially what we did here was restore the original proposed congestion zone, but remove the rate changes. The administration said 17 million for the new proposal, but we were told by industry officials it was 26 million based on their more sophisticated forecasting. We're not doing 10.25%, we're just changing the geography. And I believe the mayor's office has since indicated that they agree with the industry's more sophisticated modeling. So again, we have only adjusted boundaries and not the rate and the boundaries as the administration had done. All right, next one. Business tax video. All right, Alderman, do you want to jump in on this one?
We got it.
Chairwoman.
Chair, is it okay? Okay, we've got business tax on video gaming. This is a new item that we've got here, and I will defer to Alderman Beal to speak on this one.
Alderman Beal.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I want to thank my colleagues for a great presentation as we go through this alternate budget, which I think is phenomenal. And I want to encourage everyone to really take in what we're doing and understand that we are doing the right thing by the people of the city of Chicago. But talking about video gaming, we've talked about this for a while. Right now, we have over 3,000 illegal sweepstakes machines here in the city of Chicago that we're not getting a penny off of, not one dime. And let me again say illegal sweepstakes machines. So right now we have over 3,300 liquor licenses here in the city of Chicago. Of that, we took the number of 80%. We anticipate applying for VGT licenses, which is about 2,640 VGT locations. If each one of those locations opted in between 4 and 6 machines, we're looking at roughly 11,880 machines here in the city of Chicago, which will net us initially $10,800,000. And with that, if you look at the 10,800,000 minus the 4 million penalty that we have baked in for the Bally's contract, we potentially will have to pay $4 million for opting in. That nets us $6.8 million in revenue. $6.8 million in revenue initially. And this is a very conservative number. When you look at the fact that this is each license will contribute about $1,000 per year, and that is before any revenue is generated. Not one pull on these VGT machines, we're going to be netting almost $11 million. And so once we get up and going, and these numbers are coming straight from the licensing in Springfield, the gaming board. The gaming board is anticipating that Chicago, once fully up and operational, we will bring in between $65 and $100 million based on the 5% of the current contract that we're in right now with the state of Illinois. 5%. And so when you look at between 65 and 100 million with just 5%, that's not including the money that we could potentially get for capital improvement. The state's portion is almost $900 million. Of that, Chicago is not getting a dime for capital improvement. So if we would look to work with the state to maybe change the formula or get a lion's share of the capital improvement funds that this money will create from VGTs, we could possibly be netting between $300, $400, possibly $500 million. But we're being conservative today to get going. Coming out of the gate, we're looking at $6.8 million.
Thank you, Alderman Beal. Moving on to the lease of personal property, or the PPLT, we're increasing the rate to 15% capped through fiscal year 2027. That would mean that we would keep the rate at 15 through December 31st, 2027. With the revenue impact from the original version of the revenue ordinance of an additional $82 million. Next, we have the plastic bag tax, the shopping bag tax. This is an increase in the shopping bag tax from 10 cents to 15 cents. And this proposal maintains the 1 cent retailer share, unlike the mayor's proposal. We have, this information was gleaned from information that we received from the administration as a council back in July. These numbers are pulled directly from there. The incremental revenue estimate here is $8.7 million. Next is a liquor tax. This replaces the existing unit-based tax with a percentage-based tax on off-premise liquor sales only. So this would not affect restaurants. The revenue impact is $6 million. Now, we assume 80% of the sales are off-premise in the city of Chicago, and assuming $2 billion in total liquor sales for the year and 1/4 of implementation. We have been very conservative with our estimates here. Taxable off-premise sales would be $800 million. This was also something that was taken up by the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force, which was an independent group of 24 civic leaders charged with charting practical and forward-looking options for the city's long-term financial health. This is something that we believe has a strong opportunity to create even more revenue down the road. This would be at a rate of 1.5% of $400 million, which is $6 million that we're assuming of revenue for the fiscal year 2026. That's you.
All right, and
That's me.
you're doing the fines fees.
Actually, can you skip here first?
You want me to take that?
Yeah, will you
Oh,
take
okay.
that one first?
All right, skipping over to fines, forfeitures, and penalties. We include $89.6 million in increased debt collection. Currently, $1 billion is currently saleable, and this assumes that the city can recoup nearly 9%. We believe the impact would be about $92.6 million. Now, there's a lot of issues with debt collection. City's total uncollected debt tallies as high as nearly $7 billion going back over 25 years. Uncollected debt is reported to have gone up $1 billion over this term, but that is probably due to deficient practices that the administration inherited and accretion of new and expanded taxes, fines, and fees of various sorts. We had robust conversation on this with high-level expert-assisted independent assessments, as well as people in the administration, suggesting that potentially $1 billion of this, as I mentioned, is realistically recoverable through a combination of modernized internal collection efforts. I would also point out that some of the other issues with this include making sure that employees of our sister agencies, not limited to CPS, but as well as Cook County, have mandatory debt compliance to make sure that they are paying their bills when they're employees of the city of Chicago, of a sister agency, or of another jurisdiction. And we can immediately access some of the other information and that we could get close to 92.6 million total impact in this upcoming year.
Yes. We're including enforcement of the environmental benchmark ordinance at a revenue impact for half of a year at 3 million. If you're not familiar, the city passed an ordinance back in 2017 requiring commercial, municipal, and residential buildings over 50,000 square feet to track and report their annual energy use. We understand, based on reports, that there hasn't been great enforcement of this. A report by Electrify Chicago looked at non-reporting on the ordinance between 2018 and 2022 and found that 3,325 instances of building owners not submitting their data. Analysis further reports that the city could have generated up to $30 million. We know that's a high-end estimate. Extrapolating from these calculations, we feel like this would be an upper limit of $6.1 million per year. With the new positions that are scheduled for the Department of Environment, that there will be more opportunities for enforcement. We went with the 50% assumption on that upper limit of $6 million at revenue contribution here, $3 million. Augmented reality. Who has kids that play Pokemon Go? Anybody? I do. Okay. Pokemon Go. This is a really cool new revenue opportunity that could generate revenue by allowing augmented reality. Go, or if you use augmented reality at all, it's when you hold your and you're looking at the real world, but other things sort of pop up in its place. The city would work with a broker for augmented reality opportunities for the city, where the broker and the platform earns a commission, and there are no upfront costs. We're assuming the low estimate from the numbers provided by the AR company leading in this space at $6 million. Now, we're grateful to BOMA Chicago for sharing this information as they presented on this idea. In fact, you can go to their website and see how they're sharing this with their members. The idea was also presented to the Financial Futures Task Force and was something that World Business Chicago was also very interested in. Their revenue estimates, the broker's revenue estimates go from $6 million to $30 million potentially in a year. And we went with the low end estimate of $6 million. Advertising.
All right, moving on to advertising revenue. This includes the following options: Bridge House naming rights, light pole advertising pilot, and advertising on fleet vehicles. Again, some of this came from the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force, which was convened by the mayor. For instance, in that report, they say consider advertising on light poles, $4.3 million at the low end or up to the high end as well. We have also had, as far back as 2012, a municipal marketing plan that included advertising, if you recall, on divvy bikes, and unfortunately some of the large the highway advertising. However, the projected amount that could be here for a similar program, looking at several other cities and the different types of things that they do, is $29.3 million. And we've had some of this that came from the CFFTF report as well as from several aldermen, looking at things like city vehicles that are available for advertising on, as some other cities do. Again, the light poles and potentially other aspects of city assets that could bring in additional revenue.
The last item here is using prior year assigned and unassigned resources. We know that the city of Chicago is forecasting a deficit for 2025 of $146 million. The city will receive $173 million back from CPS as a result of the record-breaking TIF surplus. With the IGA agreement that the city of Chicago has with CPS, any amount over 379 but less than 175 in surplus would be returned back to the city to cover the MABF payment. At $173 million coming back in, less the deficit, that would remain a delta of $27 million. Our proposal carries forward 20 million of that to pay towards the advanced pension payment. And finally, there's been a lot of talk of how the budget is impacting individuals and businesses. Our proposal, in terms of new revenues, impacts businesses at 84% and individuals at 16%. I want everybody to take a look at this for a minute. Don't just glance at it. 84% to 16%. The PPLT is the largest share of the business expense, and that has gone from $0 to $1 billion in the course of 1 year. Businesses paying the overwhelming majority of what is in this new revenue package. And as I said earlier, no budget is perfect. We feel that this is a responsible, conservative budget that ensures that we are meeting our obligations with the pension payment and ensuring that Chicago continues to grow and does not put up roadblocks to growing this economy. We're here for working families. We want people to be working, and corporations employ people. We need jobs. So we cannot continue to put onto businesses more roadblocks. We recognize that we have many other things that get in the way, and we're only, again, touching 1.6% of this budget. No budget's perfect, and here we are. We're presenting this, and we hope that you come with us on this budget. Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you. Excuse me, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, please. We'll start. Ms. Jackson, I am respectfully asking you to please calm down. Thank you. All right, we'll start with questions from the committee. First up is Vice Chair Conway. You have.
Well, I'll wait till the conversation germinates a little bit before I ask any questions. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Then we'll go to Alderman Quezada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, as reported by WTTW, members of this committee said that they did not want to spend 12 to 16 hours having their numbers dismissed. But if the numbers are sound, they should withstand 12 to 16 hours of scrutiny, because scrutiny is not disrespect. It is the heart of good governance. I'm concerned that we are being asked to vote today on numbers that were not released yesterday, precisely because they could not withstand even a half day of scrutiny. If they cannot withstand 12 to 6 hours of scrutiny, they do not belong in our budget. Today, finance members.
Could you get to your question?
I'm getting to that.
Thank you.
Finance committee members are being shown supporting materials for the first time and are being asked to evaluate and vote in the same meeting. Finance committee members are fiduciaries, not an audience. Reviewing major
What
revenue
is your
assumptions
question, Mr. Quezada? Alderman Quezada.
requires understanding the methodology. I'm putting into context so that I can ask clear questions. Making major revenue assumptions requires time to understand the methodology, assess legal and procurement feasibility, consult staff, consult our constituencies, and ask follow-up questions after reflection. So I will move into my first line of questions.
Thank you.
I believe it is great that we removed the garbage fee increase and we restored funding for approximately 5,000 youth jobs. Thank you for listening to our residents and our young people, because that matters. For youth jobs funding, if assumed revenues fall short, what safeguards ensure youth jobs are not cut mid-year?
Well, I think what we're looking at right now is that the revenue estimates are probably not going to fall short based on the monthly analysis that actually comes from OBM. So in our estimation here, we're not worried about those revenue items falling short.
I would like the Budget Director, Annette Guzman, to answer that question.
Excuse me, I got this meeting.
Okay.
Alderman Quinn, you had a point of information? No, okay. Director Guzman?
I'm sorry, is the question, will the revenues fall short?
I think that's the first part. And then two, if revenues do fall short, how do we ensure youth jobs are not cut mid-year?
So this is our first time reviewing this proposal. We also don't have any of the background methodology that was used to evaluate and come up with the forecast. So I can't speak to whether or not the revenues will fall short. I would, we asked for that, and I would ask for it again so that we can do that analysis. If the revenues do fall short or don't come in based on the projections that are put forth today, we will be back here presenting possible solutions to cut expenditures next year.
Thank you. Why were the assumptions made in this budget not shared publicly when reporters requested them?
Point of information, Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Chairman, and forgive me, colleague, but if I may ask, isn't that true of any budget where revenues may fall short that we have to make adjustments mid-year, regardless if it's this one or the one that the mayor proposes?
That's true.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, Alderman?
Yes. So, or the previous one or the most recent one? Because my most recent
one
one.
that you just asked.
Yes, I was asking why was this budget not shared publicly to members of this committee and also reporters yesterday when requested? This is our first time reviewing this. This is incredibly disrespectful.
Point of clarification, Alderman Beal.
Well, Madam Chairman, we don't work for reporters. And just because reporters ask us questions don't mean we're obligated to give them information. We're not negotiating this in the press. And so when we look at this information, we asked the administration to provide their information to us as well yesterday, and they presented nothing. They were on the agenda to submit their information today, and they submitted nothing. So at least we're presenting something that you can evaluate.
I will say also that we, in our coalition, this was presented to, I want to say, 30 members of council. This is not the first time that everybody is seeing this. I appreciate that some of you are seeing this for the first time. Duly noted. It is not any different than when the administration does a direct introduction and we have no notice of it. And we are often asked to vote on those days. So it's a fair question.
Back to some of the nitty gritty here. For the advertisements on public spaces, what is your plan for an RFP process? Because from my reference, seems like the city, when they did the digital billboard vote, they passed an RFP proposal in 2011. The plan wasn't actually approved by an actual vendor. Well, that was passed in November of 2011. The vendor wasn't approved until December of 2012, and then the cities didn't start collecting revenue until 2014. So how are you going to collect $30 million in 1 year without an RFP process?
I'll answer that.
Alderman Wagasback.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Actually, an RFP process would be proposed here. Procurement has the expertise to do that. They've done hundreds, if not thousands of them, and they have the blueprint and again, the expertise to do that.
So if we do not collect your $30 million, what is your plan?
Okay, so.
Point of information, Alderman Nugent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that in the presentation that Alderman Wagasback and Lee gave, all of the estimates were conservative, and we used the lowest estimate for everything proposed. Therefore, there is a chance, should the augmented reality not fulfill the 30 million as anticipated, that we would find that revenue through other sources. Thank
Got
you,
it.
Madam Chair.
Alderman Vasquez.
Yes, I apologize for the point of information to the point of information. We're being told that these are conservative estimates. We would like the data to show that. And we need clarity there. I guess I would kind of through the chair, so I apologize if I'm overextending.
I can answer that, Chairwoman. Many of the estimates that we've provided here, for instance, through the Chicago Financial Futures interim report, that was released in August of 2025. Every alderman had ample opportunity to look at that. And the conservative or the high-end estimates are in each one of those. But we also have it in the EY report, which I know the administration held back for several months on that, not providing it. Once we got it, we went through, I think you were at the EY meeting. That's where we're really making sure that our projections are conservatively based. We're not trying to overstate them. We're giving the administration every opportunity, ample opportunity to go out there and say, we can do an RFP. I think you've been talking about advertising for 6 years. You know, sometimes it doesn't go through, sometimes it does, but the opportunity is there and it's been available for several months.
All right, we'll come back to you for round two. You've been going like 5 minutes. All right. One last question. Go ahead.
So in terms of the advertisements, do you have a design layout for how some of these advertisements would look on our bridge towers and our light poles and our
No,
city
that
vehicles?
is, that would be the responsibility of the administration
Well, I think
in the RFP process.
Thank you. I think it's a horrible use of privatization and commodification of public space.
Thank
And I think
you.
it's a continuation of failed neoliberal policies that brought us into this fiscal mismanagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Madam Chair, I
Would
can-
like for, you want to respond to that, Alderman Wagasback?
No.
No, right. Alderman Nugent, would you want to explain the PPLT?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I did just want to mention one thing. There was Alderman Lee, with all respect, we were just slightly off on the explanation of PPLT. Under the newest version, it doesn't automatically revert to 11% for the next year. Instead, it cannot be increased before January 1st, 2028. I just want to make sure we're very clear on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderman O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a point here. On October the 16th, the budget proposal was put before us. We've seen several iterations of this. One's been voted down. The group that's worked on this has spent hundreds of hours bringing in the majority of the city council to talk about this. We relied on the advice and counsel of budgetary experts. We put this together. Many people adding contributions. We brought it forth today. We're getting questions and accusations from people. Where's the other side's proposal? The other side's proposal that's been in the works for a year. This is our proposal. There is no other proposal, which would be the most.
Alderman O'Shea, do you have a question?
Just a comment. Thank you so much for your presentation, Alderman Wagasback, Alderman Lee. And thank you for your leadership.
Alderman Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to commend my colleagues for all of their hard work on this, for, bringing different people together. Thank you all for definitely removing the garbage fee. And although I still don't agree with the bag tax, like I said, nothing is perfect. But yes, a lot of people are talking and you could talk also respectfully to the administration. That's what I prefer to do in terms of crossing I's and crossing T's. Not to say somebody wouldn't support this, but if the administration, which they've done in the past, brought something and said, vote on it, I never did if I wasn't comfortable with it. That's where I'm at now. I'm good. I'm grateful for this presentation, but it's nothing that I can vote on today because due diligence, and that's all. It could be perfect, could be something I could support, but I have to do my due diligence. And with that, let me start by asking these questions because I did have some conversations with some quote unquote the millionaires and people and they talked about increasing the PPL tax. So what's the difference? Because I'm missing something in terms of what the projections were for, what the mayor and them did on this from, I guess I'm confused, on the 11% to 15%. So the 15% is still the same. And then the incremental estimate was 416 million versus, I think it was a smaller amount. What was the dollar
It's
amount?
the difference between what was originally introduced in the mayor's original revenue ordinance, which was 14%, was a lower number, and then it was raised to 15 subsequently, but it was never reintroduced as a substitute. The mayor's office went to 15%, and we're agreeing with them on the 15%. That's just the delta for raising it from 14 to 15. I don't have that number right in front of me.
So the mayor and them saying they're bringing in 416 million, and you're saying that what you're saying would, I was just confused. I forgot what page I'm on in terms of that, but get to that. What page is that again? Because I lost it. Because there was a smaller amount. So are we bringing in 416 million?
It will.
Because both of them are 15%. Let's be clear about that. Both
Yeah,
are 15%.
Some are this used was building off of the mayor's original revenue ordinance as a base. So we've added.
Can you go to that page? So because I'm.
Sorry, yes. Hold on one second, Alderman, we'll look the details.
Wi-Fi is not working here. So for me, it's not a trick question. I'm just saying if both 15%,
They're 15%.
why is the mayor saying and I could be reading something wrong, so that's what I'm saying. I need to know that we're getting in 416 million, and here we're saying we're doing 82 million, so I'm lost.
It's the 82 million is the difference between 14 and 15%, the incremental difference of the 1% going from 14 to 15. The original proposal, and again, we're building off of what the original plan was, the mayor's original plan.
Okay.
We didn't touch this. There's the short end of the long story.
And we're still bringing in 416 million.
That is correct. An additional 416 million.
All right.
Point of clarification, Alderman Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman. I had the same, I needed the same calculation to be stated for me, so I'm gonna want you guys to verify this. Fiscal year 2025 budget at 11% projected revenue at 818,125,487. The fiscal year 2026 proposed as of 10/16 at 14% with revenue projection was 1.1 billion, 1.152139380. And that would have been a difference of 334,013,893. Am I going too fast? Because David, I had the same, and I needed to have this laid out too, as a former auditor. So for fiscal year 2026, as of 11/17, at 15%, the projection was 1,234,435,050, which that change would have been from projections in 2025 of 416,309,563.
I'm trying to put my hands on a document where I can go back and just find all this out. That 82 million is the difference between.
I know.
Is the 1%.
Which is 334,013,893 minus 416,309,563.
Reverse, yes.
Yes, the reverse. That's where the 82 million
Yep.
is coming from.
Thank you, Alderman Mitchell.
Did you get that, David?
No, I'll get with, I
Finish it,
don't have to discuss here. I get with Alderman Mitchell afterwards. And so the other part is that PPLT, because I was out there advocating for it. Then I heard somebody else say, well, the reason why they're, and I hadn't verified this, so I want to bring it up. They said the reason why your businesses or your millionaires are telling you to increase PPLT because they can pass that down to the consumer. Can that be done? And if so, what projected portion, if any, can be passed down to the consumer? Or are the businesses absorbing this whole thing? So I want the story to be real. If it is, if they're picking up the 84% because of PPLT, fine. But can any of that be passed down to the consumers? And what's the projected that's going to be passed down to the
I'm gonna
consumers if we
add
talk
an
about?
answer here, and Alderman Wagisbeck can chime in. Alderman Moore, I think at any point, a business can make a decision to pass along any additional costs on to customers at the end of the day. I don't think that we projected out how much we think will be passed along to customers, but the reality is that this is a tax that hits a lot of different organizations, companies, and individuals. If you are a consultant and you work by yourself at home and you've got a subscription to a customer relationship management service like Salesforce, and you're paying a monthly subscription fee for yourself and another partner employee, you're seeing over the course of 2 years, and it will be, and we've got this in our proposal at 15%. That's a 67% increase over 2 years.
I get it,
Yeah.
but I just want to be clear. So when I'm talking to my
Yes.
constituents, when we're talking about individuals only doing 16%, that could actually go up, correct? Based on the pass that down, correct?
It is capped at 15% through the end of 2027.
I get that
Yeah.
part. I'm just saying, when we're presenting something like this, it's not a debate, it's not a got you thing. It's, I just want to be clear, because there's maybe something I can get behind, but I got to be able to talk. So when we're saying business is covering 84%, that actually
They're
could
being-
be lower.
They're the ones that are getting hit with the charge up front. We are not
They
going
could
down.
pass it, but they could
Sure.
pass it down. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to, I just want
As,
to be
as,
clear on that.
as is as every tax can be.
Yep.
Gonna do a 5-minute timer on
Okay.
first round of questions. I think Alderman Moore, would you like a round two?
Yeah, I will, and I'll get my stuff more in order. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Alderman Scott.
Chair, Wagisback, Lee, I just want to say thank you for your hard work on this. But I want a question answered for me. I just want to make sure that this alternative budget that we just presented today does not include any property taxes.
No, I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, no property tax hike at all from this alternative budget that we've presented today. No garbage, no grocery, no property tax hike. And again, we're essentially working with less than 2% of the entire $16 billion budget, in part because that's what we could get our hands on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start asking about efficiencies. Can somebody answer where are these cuts are going to be made? What are we cutting? What are the services? And have any of you talked to any heads of departments to see how this is going to impact our services?
You're referring to the EY efficiencies?
Yes, those.
Well, we had a pretty lengthy hearing here in the city council on that. I think a lot of questions were asked about what efficiencies could be put into place in the short term, midterm, and long term. The administration took a small percentage of those. And in reality, what it depends on is how much effort each department would put into crafting a plan to get those efficiencies. And I think what we
I'm
heard.
sorry, you're saying that this is incumbent upon the departments to make an effort? Is that what you said, that the departments need to make an effort?
Yeah, I
Departments
think-
that are down to the bone need to make an effort? Departments that have underfunded programs, things that are life or death? In the
The
public
EY report
department,
doesn't touch any of those, Chairman.
I just need to understand, like, how can we tell the departments that are already down to the bone that they need to put more effort. How does that work? I'm really confused.
Well, because these EY efficiencies, they do talk about efficiencies in terms of how they manage staff, but it also talks about things that they could implement to actually provide more revenue to the budget. And it's a mixture of those things.
Examples of those? What is it that we're doing? Because I am not familiar with any ideas of how do we cut services and we create revenue in these departments that are down to the bone, that I am struggling so much to get a lot of these programs to make sure that they are taking care of people.
One second.
Yeah,
Like I don't understand where are those efficiencies and what are we cutting?
I can
Alderman-
answer that, Chairman.
I don't.
I
think
can
you
answer
did,
that too,
the
but go
chair.
ahead, Alderman.
I don't think that
Waxback.
the question was answered.
So the EY report was actually created by the administration, just like the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force. We hired EY and paid them over $3 million to come up with this report.
And their
So the report
recommendations.
actually is outlined by the departments who participated in the actual report. So 22 departments and offices within the executive side participated in it. And that's where we gleaned this from. So this wasn't something that we made up. This came directly from the EY report that we all
Those are
heard.
recommendations, correct?
Yeah, they're all the
Those are
recommendations.
But we know, like any of us in this council that have issues in our ward with social services, with city service delivery, we know that we are down to the bone because it is really hard for us to get services. So I am asking again, what is it that we are putting on the chopping block for efficiencies? Or are we saying that the administration is going to have to figure out what to cut? Is that what we're saying?
Point of information, Alderman Beal.
Madam Chairman, let me just, help my colleague out a little bit. What we do in this body is we vote on a budget, and that budget goes to those departments, and those departments have to figure out how to best make their department. I'm talking, I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez, we got you. Are you through with
Yeah,
that?
no, I'm not. And I just want to state that, just like when the administration goes.
Excuse me, you had a point of clarification.
This is a point of clarification, is that when we pass a budget, if the administration tells their department heads to go and cut their budgets by 3%, that is not for us to dictate
Thank you.
how they cut their
Beal.
3%.
Thank you, Alderman Beal. Alderman Sanchez, go ahead with your other questions, please.
Well, I haven't gotten an answer to this question, but I'm going to move on because I have other questions. Was there any studies, any research, anything any evidence that was gathered in order to understand the impact of advertising everywhere in the city? Because I have done some research, and advertisement in public spaces has started to be banned in many cities because of the consequences that it has for public health and for environmental health. So I feel like here in City Council, we govern on vibes a lot. A lot of people just bring policies that they haven't researched, and they can't talk about the impacts that it has. And we have had several examples of that recently. So I want to know, when you all thought about 29 million in advertisement that is going to be everywhere, I just find
No, it's not going to be everywhere, Alderman Sanchez. We looked at
information about what are the impacts.
We looked at what other cities have done. We've looked at advertising across cities in the United States. We looked at doing it as a pilot because we knew that we could not roll out a blanket policy for the entire city of Chicago. That's why it's identified as 2 pilot projects.
Chairman, respectfully, that's not my question. My question
No, you
is,
asked
where
about
is there
you asked
any-
about the impact.
the impact in public health and environmental health. That is my question. Was there any any thought put into what are the consequences of having advertisement in
Well,
all of these places and understanding the health inequalities that come with it.
Answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Can you talk about it, please?
Yes, Chairman, in brief, looking at those other cities, they have in place aesthetic types of plans. And I would go back to a couple questions that have already been asked similarly to this. When we look at the Riverwalk has different aspects of RFP work that's been done, and everything has to be aesthetically pleasing on the Riverwalk. And so that same type of effort that's been put in by this administration and prior administrations would go into any advertising.
Talking about aesthetics, I'm talking about public health and environmental health. That's what I'm
I mean, you
talking
just
about.
have
And
to read the
there's
RFPs.
so many studies that talk about how harmful this is for public health. So I would love it if you all could do some research and do some evidence-based policy, because we are not used to that here.
I would,
The only other place that I would reference is the research that was done by this budget, our budget committee here for the subcommittee on city revenues. I can't recall the exact date that was, but
July.
several months ago, July,
July.
it was discussed in that.
Thank you, Alderman Sanchez. Alderman Hopkins, point of information, or am I adding you to the list?
Comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is an opinion that services have been cut to the bone. I don't dispute anyone's right to have that opinion, but I want to state two facts that I think disprove that opinion. The first is that payroll spending is up $1 billion with a B since the last budget prior to the pandemic, 2019. $1 billion more than the last pre-pandemic budget. And operational costs are up 40% during that same period of time. We are spending 40% more last year in 2025 than we did in the last budget before the pandemic. Those two facts, I believe, suggest that the opinion that we've cut to the bone is not valid, and we can do more. We must do more in terms of cuts and efficiencies. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Alderman Hopkins. Alderman Rodriguez.
Yes. And thank you, Alderman Hopkins, for that. Forgive me for pointing you out. My apologies. And our head count's down several thousand during that same period of time. So I wanted to start with that. But I actually want to commend you, Alderwoman Lee and Alder Wagasback. I see you two, Alderman Dow, and the group here as thought leaders here. And I appreciate the efforts you've made an alternative budget. However, I do have some questions that I think deserve answers, right? And I think that's fair. I do think the comment earlier from the budget director around revenue assumptions being shared. I've heard from you both that there was a spectrum of revenue assumptions that you made, that you had in front of you, and you chose the most conservative estimates. Can you share those assumptions?
Sure. Let me look at a couple of them there.
That you did.
So again, looking at the EY efficiency report, that's primarily where I got everything, and ran that back against the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force. So we paid for both of those, or we organized both of those reports. And therefore, we all have to assume that those are legitimate reports that not only our report or our alternate budget works off of, but the administration does as well. So the ones that I mentioned at the beginning, going through the organizational analysis work stream, looking at the EY report, there are essentially outlines throughout this report, and I think there's hundreds of them that we essentially took, not all of them, but the ones that we outlined here, and took the most conservative number so that we weren't overinflating or trying to inflate that number to say, hey, our numbers look better than they actually are.
You don't necessarily maybe have a database with the most conservative estimates with other estimates on each of these line items here.
It's in the EY report.
So it's,
and the
it's
CFFT.
built in the EY report is what you're saying.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
use both the EY report and the task force report as reference material, if you will. And we can
Give
go
me
back.
5 minutes, Madam Chair. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
do my best here to.
Which one do you want to?
It's okay. Well, two lines, we'll follow up. So
Okay.
two other lines on the business tax and video gaming. I think Alderman Beal was the one that presented on that. My understanding is you're proposing, or you're saying there's going to be $10 million of revenues plus, but 4 million of that is going to a fine to Bally's. Is that right?
That is correct. Do you want to? Alderman.
So
Beal?
here's
Okay,
the
sorry.
question. How certain are we that we have to pay that $4 million fine? And how certain are we about the revenues that come on top of that?
Alderman Beal.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And to my colleague, first of all, the projections are extremely conservative. After talking with the industry, can I finish? Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. The industry in the first year are saying that we could potentially make between 20 and 30 million the first year alone. And so we took the conservative approach to just put in this budget the price of licensing the machines, not revenue. So there's no revenue in the 6.8 projection. And so we're confident that once these machines come online, on top of the licensing, once people start using the machine, that's going to be revenue that is not even being accounted for in this budget. And so we will have added to that at the end of the day.
Thank you.
Not certain. I hear you. And then on the fines, forfeitures, and penalties, well, you said confident. I don't know. I'm just going with that. So on the fine, I'm really worried about these. We have a very high number here on the fines, forfeitures. I hear you saying there's about $1 billion out there. So you're taking about 10% in revenues. So of those revenues, are there guardrails on, forgive me, is that an internal effort or is that going to be an external RFP effort?
That would be an internal effort. And go ahead with your second part of that.
No. So this is an internal effort it's an official. So how do we get to that 98 million? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, we could contract that out to make collections as we already do.
Yes.
I don't know if a lot of aldermen know, but we have at least 7 firms that do debt collection. That has to be modernized. It has to be adjusted. And I think one of the things that we've also considered here is how we approach that in terms of equity. So
I don't have much time, Alderman, but thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
You understand that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd like to ask our Comptroller Belsky to opine on that matter.
Sure. Thank you, Alderman. The mayor's budget, as you know, we put forward several proposals to improve collections, period, just on any sort of ticketing. But the sale of debt's been talked about for years. We've had newspaper articles. There's a recent article about 150 selling 150 million. We have, multiple billions outstanding since 2001. The sale of these sorts of assets has never been done. And it's for a good reason. And that is, one, if you kind of take a scale of investment, if someone buys a bond of the city of Chicago, they have a lien, there's a property tax, unlimited as to rate or amount that goes to the property and it's collected. When you buy a revenue bond, there's a rate covenant that says you have to generate enough revenue from the water system to be able to pay that debt. Okay, so what people look for when they buy assets is security. And there's something called a perfected lien. I'm not a lawyer, but you need to be able to attach something that you can go after. Traffic tickets, red light, speed, administrative hearing. These are all the levers that are there to collect that. Many of them have gone away. The state took away the loss of driving privileges. We don't shut water off. And, these are these have happened over the years because there's an understanding of the social impact that can have on people. So we've put into place a lot of relief programs. An investor is not going to just buy assets based on the hope that this history of billions of dollars of uncollected debt all of a sudden becomes collectible.
And just
And-
for I think we got
Well,
the answer.
And
Go ahead.
one of the other thing I would say is that I would not rely on $89 million in this budget. This has never been done by any city. We are definitely doing a more data-driven approach to collections by, zip code, ability to pay. It's never been done. And I would say that, even if we could do it, what you're doing is relying on a one shot. That's exactly what the rating agencies are criticizing.
And I'd say to just the organizers that I have concern about disparate impact on this effort and the communities that be paying on this and the harassment that happens on this. I think this needs a lot more conversation, in my humble opinion. This particular thing is really interesting to me. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it if you invite me to the table.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate the question, if I may, Chairman.
Yes.
We share the same concerns. We don't want people being harassed on the phone, right? So I think that not for today's conversation, but around the management ordinance is the opportunity to create the guardrails around this. We're putting in a placeholder, which represents basically 9 cents on the dollar.
Alderman Rodriguez, I wanted to have Mary Wagner, who's from the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force, weigh in on your question regarding EY efficiencies. Okay. Mary?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hello, my name's Mary Wagner. I am the Senior Director of State and Local Finance at the Civic Committee. I've been assisting this group of aldermen with some analytical support on their efforts. Just to kind of reiterate what Alderman Wagasback was talking about earlier with respect to the EY efficiencies. So these come directly from their report that was released mid-October. And in terms of using the most conservative estimates, they often provide a range of estimates. So for example, on vacant positions, they estimate a short-term revenue impact of 2 to 10 million. So this plan uses $2 million instead of the 10. So another example is accelerated disposition when it comes to fleet management. Their short-term estimate is 4.4 million to 6.4 million. However, the budget that the mayor proposed already includes $3 million of that. So we take the low estimate, 4.4, minus the 3 million that's already included. So an incremental 1.4. So that's kind of just a very high level explanation, but wherever EY provided a range of numbers, we chose the low one.
And my question was, do you have a database on that in each of these? And Alderman Wagasback said it's baked into EY, so we'll just have to sift through all that essentially, is what you're saying. I was just curious if you guys had a database you're working off of, because I assume that given you were saying you were looking at a conservative estimate and other estimates, that you have, a clear database that you can share with all of us on maybe
We do
low
not
end and
have a
high end.
database. We have
Okay.
what is in the public report. Yes.
Okay. It's just directly from the reports. Yeah, both reports and other information from both the subcommittee and other, just compilation of all that data.
I mean, I've looked at that report. That's gonna be tough. Okay, I'll
Just
leave it
read
at
the
that.
report.
Yeah, I read the report.
Okay.
And I think my issue is
More
this dynamic between you're saying you guys analyze the various. I'll just leave it there. I think we understand our difference here. I'll leave it there. And just the last thing, Madam Chair, maybe it's for a round two, is just I just wanted to hear what we're assuming the budget for enhanced that collection for the mayor's budget. I just want to know what the difference was. It's not at the top of my tongue. Now we're round two, it's up to you, Madam.
I have you, Alderman Vasquez. Do you know the?
Was that a question to me?
Need to respond.
The question is, how much have we already assumed in the budget? So we have assumed in the budget for DOF already above what's in the 2025 budget for enhanced debt collection and enforcement, just in DOF, about $118 million over 2025. So this would be an additional around $90 million to that.
Alderman Vasquez, point of information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One, because I appreciate my colleague, Alderman Rodriguez's question about the assumptions and data and how they came to numbers and what conservative or not. Just for clarity, independent of whatever you presented or whatever the administration presented, they never gave us the data. So the E&Y information, which we were asking even when the original proposal was presented, we never got. So we haven't gotten the data from one or the other. To Ms. Alderman Wagasback's point, it's being based off a document the administration had done and created, and they never gave us the data to begin with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Villegas. Alderman Villegas. Keep going. Alderman Hall. Alderman LaSpada.
Thank you, Chair. First, I really want to extend, just, my back on?
LaSpada.
Okay. I really want to extend my gratitude to Alderwoman Lee, Alderman Wagasback, and others for their leadership on this, because I feel like it's been collaborative and iterative and the things that we're supposed to be doing as a body. So I want to take a moment to appreciate that. I want to ask about a couple items in here. I want to go back to the piece around debt, because that is a substantial percentage of what's being proposed. And my understanding is the concept behind this is that we would sell existing outstanding debt to collection agencies. And we had talked about this in terms of potentially commercial and industrial debt. What I wanted to understand, because I was a bit confused by Comptroller Belsky's remarks, is it that the city cannot do this, or the city hasn't done this in the past? And what would be the pathway for doing what's proposed?
Comptroller Belsky.
Yeah, so my point is that it's never been done by a city before. And I think the major reason is that it's not a reliable security source if someone's going to buy it. We already know that we have billions of dollars in uncollected debt, and you have a bunch of issues around it. One is, if someone buys it, are they going to be responsible for the collection? And then you might have an issue where you have residents being called up by these firms that own these assets, and they could be heavy-handed, and it'll come back to the city because it is the city's debt. So that's an additional problem. But again, to rely on this as a revenue source for a budget as a one-time thing, and then maybe even expecting that it's going to be a continuing source, for me, if you're asking me to implement this, I have a problem with that, because again, I can't assure you that that sort of money would come in. And you know what? If we could do this, I certainly wouldn't sell it for 9 cents on the dollar. If there's $1 billion in debt outstanding and it was possible to securitize, which you're suggesting, I certainly wouldn't sell it for 9 cents on the dollar. But this is not the type of thing, when I was at a rating agency, again, this is a one shot, and this is a speculative one shot. So again, I would encourage you to look for alternatives. As I said, we have put together a pretty robust plan that brings in $118 million with adding PEAs, expanding smart streets. If I could, just through our own efforts, increase collections by 92 million, that'll be great. But we are putting in an effort, and we've estimated 118 million. If it comes in 90 million over that, great, but I wouldn't budget on that.
Thank you. Alderman.
Wait, what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Point of information? Alderman Conway, Vice Chair.
Yeah, thank you. You know, one thing I would say is I have great respect for Comptroller Belsky, but I would say we would be far from the first municipality to sell our accounts receivable. I mean, earlier this year, New York City did it for water charges and sewer charges and property related charges. Baltimore, I think, does it like every year. Philadelphia has sold off its accounts receivable first. So we would hardly be the first municipality to do something
Okay.
such as.
Well, I mean, my response to that is that there is, those are perfected liens. Those are, those sorts of debts are where you go after you're able to lien the property. So you have a security there behind the investment. Tax liens, property tax liens are sold by cities all the time. What we're talking about are traffic tickets. We don't take away driving privileges. We can't seize vehicles.
Thank you,
So
Comptroller Belsky. You had said that previously, so didn't want to repeat that.
Here,
Alderman Laspada.
here's where I'm going, like, can someone who was a part of the team putting this together, it does not have to be right now, provide examples of other municipalities that have done what is being proposed in this budget, namely the selling of debt as an asset. That's what I was trying to get at and understand. So my second question was going to back to the EY component of this. Can we go back to that slide? So there's a part of this is related to closing select vacant positions. And I know that these are examples. We talked about this yesterday. Would this require going back to the appropriations ordinance to identify additional vacancies to cut?
Alderman Laspada, we're going to have Mary Wagner answer that question for you. Mary, could you repeat the question? Did you hear the question?
No. Actually, can you repeat the question?
Certainly.
Laspada?
So when we're looking at, the target is based on
Keep going.
efficiencies identified in the EY report, including closing select vacant positions. My question is, does this imagine going back to the budget? Does this imagine going back to the appropriations ordinance to identify potential additional vacancies to be cut heading into 2026?
We have heard Mary do that. Okay. Alderman, I think this came out of I believe what you're referring to is out of the analysis work stream or the organizational. What we were looking at was there was a span of $2 to $10 million for vacant positions that would not affect the day-to-day operations. And that's why, to be safe there, we also used the lower end estimate of $2 million out of the 10.
Okay, I appreciate it. Chair, could I make one more comment
Yes,
and then
go ahead.
resolve it? So I appreciate the effort, and I know that the clock is running down and we have votes that need to be taken in short order. And I respect if the preference of colleagues is to vote today. I would ask for consideration when we've, not to cut the meeting short prematurely, but when we've completed our other items, if it is at all possible to recess to either Wednesday or Thursday so that people could review these matters, I'd appreciate that, because it was called out by my colleagues that we don't ever like it when we're asked to vote on a substitute that's been put directly in front of us. I agree with that, whether it's coming from colleagues or from the administration. If there's any way for us to vote on these even tomorrow so that we can fully digest this, I put that forward.
Thank you, Alderman. Take that under advisement. Alderman Hall.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Chair, you don't give me that look like, Don't skip me.
No. Well, first thing, thank you so much for the work that you all put in. Seriously, it shows the passion, commitment that you all have for the city. My first question is going back to VGT, which again, I support, piece of ordinance to remove those illegal machines. My question is, everything has to start down the gaming board as it pertains to the applicants. And there's a 6 to 12 month backlog for those who are applying for outside of Chicago for these VGT licenses. So is there an arrangement that we've made to expedite those who are going to apply in Chicago with this ordinance? Because if it's going according to what they have sent to us in the memo when looking into this, then how will we be able to get all of these licenses, potential licenses online, if is there a pathway for applicants to be expedited?
Alderman Beal.
Madam Chairman. First of all, there's not a 6 to 8 month backlog right now. It's a 6 to 8 month period in which licenses come online and get approved. So that's not the backlog. And so right now the state is approving between 300 and 400 licenses per month. And all of that was taken into this equation and why we came up with a conservative number of 6.8 million.
Alderman Hall, by the way, I wanted to ask you to take down off of your Facebook page that the proposal you got 15 minutes ago raises property taxes. That's not true.
Well, I appreciate your opinion. So the second question that I have is the EY approach to the efficiencies, which is very laid out. How much in the efficiency recommendations include jobs to be either closed or cut? Or are there any? I don't know.
Well, I think you would have to read the whole report. Some of those are looking at, instead of police doing jobs, that would transfer over to traffic management authority, filling different types of vacancies. But overall, I think in the report, there are they refer to non-critical vacancies, like anything that doesn't pose a direct risk to immediate business operations in the city. I mean, that's all kind of laid out in the EY report, but we don't have anything here that would affect any critical operations at all in our alternate budget for the city.
Okay, and in addition to, I think it's right behind you, you said the 16% for the new revenue would be specifically consumer, 84% majority. Have we did any math to show what that 16% looks like as pertains to the day-to-day costs added to the residents? And the reason why I mentioned the property tax increase earlier, as it's written on my page, is because we're paying for the libraries through property taxes being added onto the property tax bill. So that's the reason why I mentioned.
That hasn't come before us. It's not. part of this.
I don't need to talk about what's going on in here to put on my page. So at the end of the day, if I want to talk about something that happened at 10 about property taxes increase, then that's my right. So the point I want to make is back to this question is the 14% that is going to be added to the day-to-day residents and things of that nature. Has that been quantified as it pertains to an amount per resident? For example, with the property tax bill, having the libraries, it equates to $4 or some change in depending on what have you. So does this equate to per type of?
To be clear,
Yeah.
nothing in the revenue ordinance that is on the table right now and being discussed currently in this conversation includes any sort of property tax.
No, clear, right.
I want to make it perfectly clear because you keep bringing it up. Now, what we have here in this breakdown is for every dollar of new revenue, 84 cents of that is being borne by business and 16% by individuals. We did not do a calculation that includes what you're asking for.
Gotcha. Okay, that's all I wanted to reference. And again, thank you all so much for the work. And again, appreciate it. Thank you.
Chris, I don't know if you were referring to we did put money back in for library collections that was originally cut out of the mayor's budget. So yes, that is, but that's not a levy. That is money for the collection.
Oh yeah, I was talking about something completely different.
Okay.
Everybody just thought I was talking about here, but that was completely.
Thank you, Alderman Hall. Alderman Villegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Alderman Wagasback and Alderman Lee. I just had a couple of questions. So with the budget that was introduced by the mayor in October, what percentage of this are we changing or discussing during this meeting right now?
1.6%.
So we're talking about amending a $16.6 billion budget, which accounts for 1.6% of the total overall proposal. And let me mention that again, proposal. The administration puts forward a proposal, the city council in turn takes a look at it, can either go with it or put forward amendments, which is what this body has, what this finance committee has chosen to do. I have a question around, and this is not so much for my colleagues, Lee and Wagasback, more for the administration. I know that in the budget, there is a mention of a smart tax, social media tax, which is one of its first of its kind in the city, I think mirrored around what's occurring in Maryland. And I wanted to know if the budget includes two things. Do they include the outside counsel that we have to pay to defend the lawsuit that's coming from the internet companies? Also, three things, I'm sorry. So outside counsel that we have to pay to defend a lawsuit, the settlement once we lose the lawsuit, and then also the attorney costs that are going to be associated with every internet company that is successful in winning this lawsuit. Which I would mind you, I would say that it's projected that outside counsel would cost us $2 to $3 million on our side. And so if you did some easy math and took a look at all the other tech companies, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Meta, Google, that potentially that would be anywhere between $1 to $3 million in outside legal fees as well, plus the settlement. So has that been baked into this budget? Since we're talking about the uncertain, especially when the administration has said, we know we're going to be sued, but that's okay.
Director Guzman?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So we have baked that into the budget. As we've noted, one, the Department of Law has increased their staff. So in this budget, there's 12 additional attorneys within the Department of Law, which actually does allow us to decrease the outside counsel spend that is in their budget as well. As you know, because you've been in these meetings with me and the Department of Law, they're very conservative in their approach to tax policy because the fact that the city gets sued, even if we have a great case, we'll get sued anyway. Even if we know that we're going to win, we'll get sued. And so what we have done is we have not put any expenditures against this revenue source in the course of 2026 when we know that the litigation will play out. That is a very conservative approach, which is different than what's been done in the past where the city has implemented tax policy and that was controversial and also at the same time put expenditures against it. We didn't do that this time. The tax is not the same as the one that you mentioned in Maryland. It's different. And based on how it is structured, we believe, again, from a very conservative Department of Law, that we have a very winnable and defendable case.
So the question is, we haven't budgeted any money for any type of outside counsel. You said, no, strike that. Any type of settlement or any type of legal fees that potentially we would have to pay once we lose this lawsuit.
I did answer your question. One, I mentioned that the Department of Law has increased their staff by 12 attorneys.
Not all 12 are focused on this issue. So that's
Part of those are in the litigation division, yes.
and then some of them are also going to be used for collections. Am I correct?
That's a different division. My point is that
But that's part of the 12 attorneys though.
My point is we have accounted for what you are naming by increasing the staff within the Department of Law. We've also not put any expenditures against this revenue in the event that it would have to be returned, which is a different practice than the city has done in the past. And we have taken a very conservative look and approach to the tax policy and the tax that we're implementing based on our authority and the authority under both state law, city law, and the federal law. We believe that this is a winnable case. We believe that the Department of Law has everything that they need in order to support the city's defense.
Well, I would say that anytime someone brings a lawsuit, they assume that they're going to win. So again, that's just an assumption. That'll be for the courts to determine whether or not we're successful. Given the track record, what's occurring in Maryland around the digital ads, and also Washington, D.C. taking a look at putting some regulations around social media, I would caution that the city would take this effort to try to create revenue on an industry that is protected under the First Amendment around freedom of speech, and put us in a position to ultimately have to pay out with settlements, as well as pay out for potential legal fees to these billion-dollar corporations that's always stated in this council. Madam Chair, I'd like a round two.
Thank you, Alderman Villegas.
And
Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Madam Chair, I think a lot of the conversation of the information has come from the EY report. So I want to first get clear the date that the report was published, because I think it's important that we start with that. Can I get a response on when this EY report was published for the record?
October 16th.
October 15?
16th.
Okay, October 16. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at the facts, because if we cannot get dates right, I will certainly think that these projections should be subject to scrutiny. My question around these efficiencies go around what you're proposing to cut. Have you have any conversations? Had these proposed cuts have been reported out to the budget office or anybody that can look into this? Yes or no?
Is that a question for me?
First for the panelists, and then you can corroborate.
Did we communicate on the Ernst & Young report with the administration?
No, do your $46.6 million cut, had those cuts been transferred, had that information or what you pretend to cut being transferred to the budget office?
Well, first of all, they're not cuts, but yes, we've had conversations with the administration.
Conversations, or have you transmitted the detail?
We actually have sent a letter to the administration detailing a lot of what we wanted to see in
Wait.
the UI report.
Wait a second. We're talking about not a letter. I'm talking about have you communicated what those efficiencies in this proposal look like to the budget office?
Yeah.
So yes.
Yes, efficiencies. Yes, they're not cuts, Alderman. They're efficiencies.
Well,
And
I'm using what
point out-
you're saying here in the alternative. Well,
Let me point out one other thing. Even though they just said it was October, we asked for that report back in June, on June 3rd, with many aldermen signing on to the letter asking for that report to be made public. And it wasn't. And we had to wait till October.
Look, there's only one date when they were made public. There's not two dates, there's one. And that I think we can verify.
No, there's
Now,
what we have access to and what we don't.
let me go back to my line of questioning. So when we're looking at what you propose in here, you mentioned a number of budgetary experts, some of the members of City Council. Can you give me what are those experts? Who have you been consulting? I just don't see a single source in your presentation. There's not a single actual source in that presentation. Can you give me that?
Ernst & Young.
Okay.
So
and
there's a $3 million report that was commissioned by the city.
I appreciate the humor,
The
but
city's own report.
I appreciate the
Wood and I
humor, but
refer to that.
It's very different to the EY report, right? You have a proposal on the table. We're looking at. I appreciate the humor, but I do think it's important that we go through the details. Because one of the things that I'm concerned about, I think that the proposal includes, and that's some members of the Progressive Caucus have said, cutting 311 service hours and replacing them from the 24/7 to using chatbots. Is that correct? Is part of your proposal reducing 311 service hours?
Okay.
I'm looking into your what you propose.
It was in the EY report. It was considered.
It was considered, but is it in yours or not?
We have not made recommendations, but we're not being prescriptive about this. What you see.
We
is
gave the
specific.
administration a menu of things that they could, no,
I'm
I'm gonna answer your question. I'm gonna answer your question. We gave the administration a menu of things that they can work on, that they can choose from. That's one element.
okay. So I see that, you know, we don't have a lot of details. That's a concern to me. What are the projections, right? In terms of the projections that you have in your own budget, right? In your own proposal. Some of those projections to me are super inflated in terms of, and I'm gonna focus on the fines and fees, because I think this is, I don't have a lot of time, I'm gonna have around two. But you're proposing to balance the budget, right? I want this rationale. You're proposing to get off the corporate head tax. And I wanna hear what is your evidence of why that should be removed from your alternative. And you are really balancing on fines and fees. More of those have come from today. And I hope that even the people here in the room, you're talking about automobile fees, you're talking about the city clerk including more fines and fees for vehicles, pounding and all that. So you were talking about the EY report, by the way, consider cuts or in your efficiencies for fine and fees, no more than $74 million, $20 to $74 million if you read the report. What you have here is balancing the budget with fines and fees and taking the corporate head tax. I want to hear your rationale to do that. And also, if your report includes projections, because every report has to include inflation, recession, and other factors in the economy when you produce that. So you are proposing $92 million, way beyond what EY report even considered. So I want to hear, what is your rationale to move the corporate head tax and impose more fines and fees on Chicagoans? I want to hear your rationale.
Well, first of all, going back to this again, we paid for the EY report. We also had the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force. That was Jim Reynolds. So that's where we're getting a lot of that information from. That is something that this administration convened to go find these types of revenues. So it's not just coming from us. The origin is from the administration. Now, if you want to talk about what is balanced or what is not, we could go into that. Every budget has projections, just like this budget that the mayor proposed that was voted down. Every budget is a set of assumptions. And in part, what we are doing is trying to narrow it down as best we can using conservative numbers that came from the departments and the offices in this city who participated directly with EY in producing this report.
Point of information, Madam Chair, I think the set of assumptions that we have are very different. And I think that city council members
They're
should.
very different.
Yes,
They're very
those
different.
assumptions do matter. So I just want to correct for the record, your assumptions are very different. And I'm concerned about, you still have not given me one single source, one single budgetary expert that worked on this, not one single one.
Well, we just had one of them speak from the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force.
What are the source of their data? I heard also a lot of concerns
Chicago
about that.
Financial Futures Task Force, the EY report, assumptions and data from this administration where they went to the actual departments in the offices to get that information.
But again, the
Point
EY
of
report
information,
is what you're
Alderman
proposing.
Vasquez.
Thank you. At the point of reiterating myself, we have been asking for the data from the administration since the beginning for the E&Y report. We never received it. So to then ask these folks who are going off of the same document that also never received it to provide the data that we never received when we asked for it multiple times is a joke. We asked for it from the beginning. We actually had to force a hearing to get data and information. We did not get it from the administration. Those are the budgetary experts that we're asking about. Thank you.
Alderman, you want a round two. Alderman Burnett.
Thank you, Chairman. Alderman Wagasback, Alderman Lee. Seriously, I do appreciate you all going through the effort as well as the other 28 colleagues who have been trying to figure out creative ways to get this budget passed. There's some things on here that I'm really excited about. I didn't know if I was just new or if these ideas were ready quite yet. So I just want to get a little bit more clarity on how these structurally work, particularly with the advertising fees. We talk about the light pole ads as one of the possibilities. In the assumptions that you have presented, is this a full adoption? Can you talk through the mechanics? Is this projected to be citywide, and how quickly is the ramp up process here?
Yeah.
Give us 1 second. Shuffling papers around. Thank you. On the light pole advertising, this comes directly from the Chicago Financial Futures Task Force report. It assumes 1% of all light poles with 2 banners each. And this also further comes from the report that was shared with City Council back in July. I'll be happy to share that with you as well, Red, where the city also estimated projected revenues on that as well.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't here, so it would be great to get those documents.
Yeah, and I would just point out too that again, in 2012, this was done. There was a task force or a committee that was put together similar to what we have with the Riverwalk. They look at the aesthetics, they look at the different aspects of how it would affect both the visuals of Chicago, but what those possible revenues could be. And I'm not saying that we used the 2012 numbers, but they were actually close to what this is. And that was, obviously several years ago. But again, we took the subcommittee on finance, we took the or the CCFT report and tried to build that in here, assuming that we're only talking about 1% of all light poles in the city, just on the light pole aspect.
And is there, when you say 1%, do we know how many light poles that is?
I think 1% citywide. I'm not exactly sure. Gil, I don't know, Chairman.
Don't have that.
I can keep
Maybe
going
Angus,
because
I think
I
it
want
was
to
30.
utilize my time. We can get back to that answer.
We'll get that information to you.
So 250,000 poles.
It's 300,000
100,000.
poles.
So-
300,000 poles, so we assume 3,000.
So 3,000. Okay, so again, I'm just curious about the implementation. And the number that they projected, again, I haven't seen the report. I don't know if that's the stabilized number when it's at full effect. Have we projected some type of ramp up time in order to get the advertising revenues we need for that project?
Yeah. Well, when you talk to chambers of commerce, they also do RFPs, SSAs do RFPs. They get that stuff out within months, if not a year, but
There's
same information.
I just shared it with you, Alderman, so there's more detailed information directly from the city on advertising on light poles.
Point of information, Alderman Villegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the authors of this portion were very smart to include a pilot program, which allows the Office of Procurement, Department of Procurement Services to act quicker, because it's a pilot program, which in turn allows the city to find out what types of technologies are out there to fulfill this advertising goals.
Understood. There's still a ramp up period of time.
Point of information, Alderman Irvin. Oh, you're next, anyway.
Thank you. I know I have a limited amount of time, so I would please continue, like to ask questions. I've done some of this work, been looking at that with some other colleagues for my ward in a pilot program. We see a 35% adoption rate in year one of what the maximum number could be. So I just want to put that into consideration when we talk about how much revenue we're able to generate, because even with the install time, the first year, it's going to take some time in order for the advertisers to collect the dollars that we're looking for, even if it's a flat rate fee or part of the percentage of revenue.
What was the percentage that you said? I'm sorry.
35%
35%.
of the stabilized amount. So please take that into consideration. My next line of questioning is around VGTs, but I think the author is not in the room, so I guess I'll come back for second line of questioning. In terms of the debt collection, in my former life, I was a debt structured broker, so this is exciting topic for me, particularly with like how debt is structured. We have first lien, second lien, secured loans. And so I'm curious to the finance team, when we're talking about this revenue package that they're presenting, how much of this revenue is leaned out to other debt products, if any at all? Can we just say if yes or no, if we have this revenue stream tied to securitized products for our current debt outstanding?
The revenues that the city of
Could you identify yourself, Ms. Jaworski?
Yes,
for the
Jill
court?
Jaworski, Chief Financial Officer. The revenues that the city has pledged to various debt instruments include our property tax, which is part of our general obligation pledge, our sales tax, which secures our sales tax securitization corporation bonds, the water revenues generated from our water system, sewer revenues generated from the sewer system,
and the revenues generated by the operations of Midway and O'Hare, which support bonds issued by, for Midway and separately for O'Hare. We do not have other individual revenues pledged to debt. So the general obligation does contain also what we call full faith and credit, which means that we will use any resource available to pay those bonds, but we don't have other individually securitized revenue streams in that manner.
Understood. And so my question is more so about what was offered in this package. What they're proposing that we sell off, or any of those revenue streams committed to debt currently?
No, the package, as we've been briefed on it here today, does not include any of those items.
Okay, so some of my concern or risk with that department is when you do sell off certain debt item or certain items or revenue streams, we're liable to the possibility of paying back certain debts earlier than we expected. So I know we're not committing any of the revenues that's in this package, which is good, but I know the team would have to then still consider what does this type of securitized product mean for our overall debt structure and possibly risk credit downgrades for other debt that's outstanding. So that's something to consider. I'll wait until Alderman Bill is back to ask my VTT questions.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Alderman Irvin, followed by Alderman Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions around vacancies, and this is to the budget director. What is the current count in the corporate fund that for vacancies? How much, I'll call it unencumbered, related to vacancies?
When you account for the hiring freeze that we have already in the budget, as well as turnover, there's about $99 million of vacancies in the corporate fund.
How much, in your opinion, is left potentially in vacancies?
After you account for CPD, there's, I can get you that specific number if before the meeting is over. But I do want to just note that in this budget proposal, we already
Excuse me,
have about
Budget
$4 million
Director.
in vacancy reductions. So
Excuse me, but estimation to the Alderman's question,
do I have an estimation?
to the Alderman's question regarding vacancies left and the value of them.
I mentioned after taking into account the hiring freeze and turnover that's already in the budget, it's about
He asked what was left, ration for CP. Have that.
but I said I would get that to him before the end of the meeting. Yes. My team is going to pull it up right now.
Thank you.
The reason I asked that question, I'm just trying to understand, related to the vacancy projections that were talked about. Is there actual room for the vacancies that are being projected? And correct me if I'm wrong, that number is 2 to 10 million. Is that what the number is, Scott and Nicole?
Can you repeat that, Chairman?
I was saying the number in the vacancies that you're projecting, what is that number? It says between 2 and 10 million. Is that the number?
2 million.
It's 2 million. Okay. All right. That I'm just trying to understand how much room is available in that conversation. We also talked about the debt, and the delta is an additional 92 million on top of 118 million. It is.
That's what the comptroller said earlier, yes.
Okay. The next question is around the advertising, and it kind of piggybacks off of what Alderman Burnett talked about in ramping up the amounts here at $29 million. That seems to be a lot based on a year one type of projection. How do you land there?
So just going back through it in a little bit more detail, the Bridge House naming rights, not bridges, but Bridge House, would be $10 million. When I look back at and this comes from, you know, not only the reports, but I think from subcommittee looking at, back in 2012, I think it was 25 million for a similar program. So we're not going near that number. Light pole advertising pilot was again, the 1% at a little over 4 million. And then the advertising on fleet vehicles, 15 million. I think we have 635 types of vehicles that could be utilized, maybe more, but we went with the lower end there. And used an example in Ohio for 22 trucks that they had $8 million over 10 years.
We also have the opportunity with the parking meter contract to advertise on parking boxes as well. We did not include that. There were other ideas. We talked about a lot of different things. This is these three things were what we built that 29.3 on.
Oh, yeah. Now, speaking of parking meters, the sale of debt and the sale of this asset does bring some concern around the practices of collection and what impact that it may have on certain communities of our city. I know we talk about in a very grand sense the amount of money that is owed to the city of Chicago, and whoever can answer this, if we had to categorize our debt between water or revenue-related debt, fine and fee-related debt, or what I'll call corporate debt, how does that break out?
So at this point, Alderman, parking debt, 1.6 billion, red light, 440, this is going back to 2001, 440 million. We have speed cameras, 275, water, 799, and that's relates to the enterprise fund. Administrative hearings, which are all sorts of violations, 3 billion, 21 million for buildings. Cost recovery, that would be someone damaging city property and trying to recover the cost of that, 61 million, and then EMS is 1 billion. So that's those are the major categories of outstanding debt.
Okay. I'll do round two.
You have more than one question?
Yes.
Round two. Alderman Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. I just wanted to first thank you for your work specifically around making the full advance pension payment. I think that that's been communicated for years from rating agencies as being particularly critical. And while it's hard to not see a reduction in debt despite efforts around firefighter back pay and police misconduct lawsuits, I do want to uplift my thanks for focusing on that full advance pension payment. With regard to the corporate fund savings related to E&Y efficiencies, do you think it's possible for a management ordinance to include some degree of regular reporting, whether it could be monthly or quarterly, to track what's happening so that if maybe we're not keeping pace with what is going on here, we don't wait until the fall to figure out how to fill that hole?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Alderman Martin. I completely agree with you on the management ordinance is exactly where we would put that. And our expectation would be that we build the guardrails in place. We can't suggest these efficiencies and not have a way to track and make sure that we are staying on top of ensuring that we're doing everything that we can to realize the savings that EY has put forward that we know over time can produce a lot more. But if we don't do the work up front and we don't, we have to continue to stay at it. And reporting back to city council is absolutely something we plan to build into the management ordinance.
Okay. With the ground transportation tax, understanding that relative to the mayor's initial budget proposal, it would go down by approximately $39 million. Do you know where that would leave us in terms of additional revenue relative to 2025?
1 second.
I think it was, yeah. So again, just on that point, what we have in ours, there's restoration of the original proposed congestion zone, but We essentially, I believe, looked at 39 million.
Yes.
Yep, 39 million.
So that would a year over year increase in 39 million?
Yes. No, just for the
That's it.
first, you have that document?
Yeah.
Hold on
yeah,
a sec.
So,
Sure.
our proposal, restores the original, proposed, congestion zone, but removes the rate changes. That the minus 39.4 reflects taking out the rate increase from the original proposal.
Understood. With regard to fines, fees, forfeitures, and penalties, so I know the overall number 92.6. 3 million is associated with the environmental benchmark ordinance. I have a question about the second bullet, debt collection, but with regard to the shared housing fee and license increase, approximately how much does that comprise?
So, and I thank you for that, and I apologize that we missed that here. It's a little less than $1 million. There's no increase to the rate. The increases that we've made are to the 2-year license and then the annual registration. So those fees are doubled. It's just under $1 million in terms of the impact to this budget. So that's additional revenue.
Okay. With regard to debt collection, kind of similar to the piece around E&Y efficiencies, what do you think could be done by way of a management ordinance to keep collections away from poor and working class individuals and or corporate entities that have essentially no revenue?
So I'll take a shot at this, Alderman Wagasback. I think the management ordinance is exactly where this happens. Look, if we're selling the debt, I believe we get to set the terms of that. So the idea would be to identify that debt that goes after the people that can most pay for it, and leaving out of that the folks that we don't anticipate can pay for it. We have amnesty periods for a reason, right? And we the amnesty periods that the clerk's office has done have been very successful, and I think we've already accounted for additional months of that. So the management ordinance, I believe, is where we would include or building in the guardrails to ensure that we're not going after the people who can least afford it, working class people in the city of Chicago.
Okay. My last question, through the chair request, I'm sure that there were some revenue options that you looked at that maybe seemed interesting, but you determined that we lacked home rule authority, specifically that the state could grant. And so I'm hoping you can put together that list and share it with us, because if there's a possibility of some portion of us going to Springfield to advocate for home rule authority to do things that potentially a majority of city council members would support, I think that's something we should do in Q1 next year.
Yeah, we'd be happy to provide that through the chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Alderman Vasquez. Alderman Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to continue the point of debt collection, we currently have at least 2 contracts with professional debt collection agencies that I'm aware of, and they point out to me that there's a variety of ways that they can approach their job. We, as the client, direct them, whether it's in a management ordinance or a contract or even informal guidance, and they have assured me that there's a number of things that they could be doing that they are not doing right now because they are not directed to do so. Things like the amnesty program that recently expired, another amnesty program can be renewed, it can be promoted, the debt collectors can be trained on how to use that as leverage to convince people that they should pay some or all of their debt. There's the possibility of civil action that can be taken, and targets for that action can be identified. So we're only going after people that have the means to pay the debt. We're not going after the poor and the indigent, to really increase the likelihood that we can collect debt owed to us without having to sell it, which remains an option for some of it. But there's a science involved in determining where the more readily collectible debt is and where the hardcore debt is that is unlikely to be collected. And that's what you package and sell, because a penny on the dollar is better than 0 on the dollar. But these are all decisions that the professionals can and will make. That's what we pay them to do. No one here in this room is an expert, I don't think, on debt collection. But the contracts that we've had with several highly reputable firms, we can see the difference when we partner with those firms and when we ask them to step up their efforts, it pays off. And when we back off and stop doing that, collection rates plummet. So some of this is within our control. And it's clear that there's more that we could be doing right now at a time when the city desperately needs it. We should be doing it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Vasquez, you walk back in.
At the buzzer. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the work. I think some of the stuff that we've been thinking about when we made management ordinance changes were to create the environment where the council is actually creating and coming up with solutions. And I think watching what you all have done is commendable. That being said, I've got certain things I have concerns about. I want to ask away. A lot of it is related to the debt collection. I think our colleagues have already voiced some concern. I'm trying to figure out how we make sure that people who are already hurting, that have challenges paying their bills, aren't put further into debt and then bankruptcy. And I say this to someone who, when I was not the smartest, took out a credit card, maxed it out, had to go all the way to collections and all the above. When the city is doing that and it's people who are actively hurting, do you all have ideas or proposals that would be those guardrails? Like, has that been in, what have you all discussed as far as that?
Oh, you just missed it for your RC. Chair Martin just asked that exact question, and we're
Love it.
very, we are keen to work on additions to the management ordinance that would create those guardrails. We have no desire to impact those individuals. The idea behind this is that we would target those that can afford it and look to amnesty periods in the hopes of collecting the additional debt from people.
So it's not, I appreciate that, to not belabor that point, to follow up. If you're selling debt to someone, how do you control what they do? If they've decided they've already locked a deal, they're going to do whatever they need to. Is there legally controls you could put in place, which a management ordinance wouldn't address? It would give you reporting. Legally, would you be able to say, here's what you cannot do if you bought this debt?
Yeah, I think you would put it through request for proposals. We do this all the time. We put guardrails in, you do it in the contract. The law department would look at it and say, here's all the things that, for instance, the comptroller and the city council want as guardrails in this ordinance.
Okay.
And your management, coupled
So-
with the management.
Ambulance bills are the third largest category of unpaid debt. How would you ensure that we're not contributing to the burden of medical debt?
How would we ensure what?
That, like, if the ambulance debt is what we're talking about, somebody already has medical debt, how are we not making it worse if we're then also trying to follow up on ambulance debt, which is the third largest category?
I think in the same sense, working through the management ordinance, looking at the people that are using it, what their healthcare system is that they need to use and what the majority of that is. I think that can be done again through whatever request that's put out there along with the contract. We
Okay.
do it all the time in every type of contracting that we do.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, in fairness to you all, and as far as the administration, you all have had less time to talk to us about it. The administration had months, and there has not been very good negotiation, listening to anything, bringing data, providing any level of solution. So I think similarly, we have those questions of you all, but there's such a much smaller time to kind of identify what that looks like, that I would propose that there are members of this council who have an interest in having those conversations to figure out what we could all support as a council. And again, I say that in good faith.
Point of information, Alderman Cicho Lopez.
Sure.
I think the alderman has mentioned a few important points. What are the departments, like the law department? I appreciate the obviously the alderman perspective on this, but is the law department and other departments able to pitch in, especially, so I want to know whether the other departments to explain this in more detail. Are they like the legal? I thought there was the law department. There's other departments that I think could respond to some of the implementation around that and others. Are there anybody from the law department and any other departments that could?
That's
also-
not germane to the budget question, but sure. I mean, the law department can opine on the question that the alderman is asking regarding guardrails, but I don't think that that's a component of what we're discussing today.
Thank you, much appreciated. Also, in line with my colleague who was very helpful asking about the data and information and underlying assumptions. This question is not for y'all, it's for the administration. Are you guys willing to provide the data and the underlying assumptions that led to the EY? Or can you guys actually, through the chair, provide the actual data since we've never received it? Got it. Next. So as it pertains to the Smart Streets pilot expansion, why does the proposal not include just automatically going citywide? We had a pilot for this that, I mean, my colleague Alderman Riley knows, we had a pilot for supposedly a year. It's been 2 years plus now. We've not expanded it. And that is a revenue driver because the amount of people who are blocking bike lanes and buses would actively be paying for it. It's not a tax because people are violating the law. So why don't we just go automatically and have the whole city do this? Why are we not just implementing that as a revenue generator?
I appreciate the question. We didn't touch it. We left it alone. That was not an area that we impacted on here. So that's it.
Sorry. So let me fix that question because we did have this in a hearing and the comptroller definitely answered the question. My question is different. They articulated why there might be challenges in getting to that place. My question is, our proposal would be to force that to happen from the council side, to say we have to get this done and go citywide and do it, as opposed to waiting for it not to get there. I would say the same thing for the 25 Department of Finance workers that would do parking regulations, double that to 50. We should force those things. Sorry, that's all I got.
No. Alderman Vasquez, good points. If you
Yeah.
recall, last year, we had some concerns about OPSA and about the medical unit, right? We put that into the management ordinance, which forced the conversation and the audit, which happened this year.
Yes.
So I think that there are opportunities to do what you're suggesting.
Yeah, and I appreciate, again, I think the proposal put forth by the mayor focused so much on $83 million of a $6 billion corporate fund, of a $16 billion budget, that we did not have fulsome conversations about everything else involved in this budget. So I do appreciate that you all are looking at it in different directions. And it is my hope, and I think the hope of every Chicagoan in the city, that we figure out what a budget is going to look like that averts a government shutdown. And in that interest, I'm always open in good faith to have conversations and do appreciate the work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Vasquez. Can I get a motion to allow Alderman Taylor and Alderman Taliaferro to move for Rule 59? So moved by Alderman Quezada. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Before we move to the second round, our court report. Oh, Alderman Mitz, did you have a question? Okay. Thank you. Alderman Taylor?
Here, Madam Chair.
Okay, and Alderman Taliaferro? He has not jumped on yet. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and start round two.